Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning if you are in another time zone. Welcome. We will give it a minute so more people can join us. All right, I see that the numbers are increasing. So hello again, my name is Ina Gentil. I'm a project officer at the EU Disinfolab, and welcome to today's webinar called Disinformation and Real Estate Exploitation, the case of Varosha in Northern Cyprus. While we wait for a few more participants to join, a quick reminder that the registration for the EU Disinfolab annual conference that you will see on the slide in a second is now open. So the conference will take place on the 15th, 16th of October in Ljubljana. And you can find all the details and registration information on the EU Disinfolab website, or you can also scan the QR code displayed on the screen here. Let me start now with introducing some housekeeping rules. As many already know, this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be available on our YouTube channel shortly after this webinar. And you can also watch all the previous webinars there. There will be also live translation available for this webinar. You can enable subtitles by going to the caption sections marked with CC, located at the bottom left, just like on the screen here. You can click on the arrow, enable the translation option, and select your preferred language. You will also have the opportunity to send us some questions during our Q&A at the end of the presentation. And please note that we are using Slido and not the Zoom Q&A. So to do this, please scan the QR code that you will see on the screen now on the side, or go to slido.com and enter the code #disinfo. It's very simple, don't worry. And to familiarize yourself with the tool, we are starting with 2 short polls. As you see on the screen, you can indicate to us where you're joining us from today. I see Vilnius already. This is really nice. Also Bologna, Brussels, Dmitro, hello. We'll wait just a few more seconds to see if we have more cities represented. Okay, Helsinki, Nicosia, nice. Brussels. Thank you very much. We'll go to the second question. Which sector do you represent today? You can select your answer. NGOs, academia. Nice. Great. And also a reminder that you can share your questions during the presentation in Slido, and we'll come back to them after the presentation at the end of the PowerPoint. Okay, academia mainly. Thank you very much. Now, about the EU Disinfolab, we are a non-profit organization gathering knowledge and expertise on disinformation in Europe. We regularly organize these webinars to give voice to experts in our counter-disinformation community, to help sharing knowledge and raise awareness around the great work that's already been being done by many. And without further ado, let's now delve into today's topic. I'm joined today by Dr. Dimitris Pascalidis. Thank you for being with us today. So Dr. Dimitris Pascalidis is a postdoctoral researcher at the Laboratory of Internet Computing at the University of Cyprus. His research focuses on AI-driven identifications of online hate speech and disinformation, as well as modeling polarization and its role in disinformation detection. I'm also flagging here that his expertise leans more towards the technical side rather than policy. So if you have any policy-related questions, feel free to get in touch with us after the webinar, and we'll be happy to connect you with the relevant experts at the University of Cyprus. So today's webinar examines the intersection of disinformation campaigns and real estate exploitation in occupied Cyprus, specifically focusing on the ghost city of Varosha Famagusta. And this case study is part of the Athena project's broader research into foreign information manipulation and interference, so FIMI. Before we begin, I'll give a very brief overview of the project Athena. So as you can see on the screen, Athena is a Horizon Europe project that contributes to Europe's defense against foreign information manipulation and interference, also known as FIMI. And the project aims at early detection of FIMI campaigns and better understanding of the behavioral and societal aspects of FIMI, as well as the efficacy of deployed countermeasures, both before, during, and after FIMI campaigns. Athena investigates the tactics, techniques, and procedures, TTPs, used in more than 30 documented FIMI cases, including the one that will be presented today, and assessing their societal and behavioral impacts. The project aims to develop countermeasures, process and analyze FIMI data, and create a knowledge graph, a disinformation analysis toolbox, and a dashboard to monitor FIMI trends and responses. It also examines legal and regulatory frameworks across 8 countries in Europe, identifying gaps and areas where policy could be improved at both national and EU levels. We can see on the next slide that the Athena Consortium includes experts from various sectors, including cybersecurity companies, universities, fact-checkers, NGOs, spanning from Ukraine to Ireland and Sweden to Cyprus, as we can see on the partners map. And now, Demetris, the floor is yours. You should be able to share your screen in a second. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You just quickly share my screen. The slides. Please confirm that you're able to see my slides.
Yes, all good.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ines, for the introduction and for the opportunity to participate in this very interesting series of webinars. As it has been introduced to everybody, I am Dimitris Pascalidis. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Cyprus, and I will present to you a case study and findings regarding the disinformation and real estate exploitation that is ongoing at the island of Cyprus, EU member state that is currently occupied. As Ines said, this is under the premises of the Athena project, which you can find more information and gain access to these reports by scanning the QR code at the bottom of my slides. Now, before we begin to our actual, the narratives and actual findings of ours, I will first put you into a historical context, let's say, regarding the displacement and real estate disputes. We begin from 1960, August 16, where Cyprus was proclaimed independent after an agreement was signed by Greece, Turkey, and the UK in 1959. This was following a 4-year Greek Cypriot uprising that ended the 82 years of British rule. 14 years later, on July 15th, 1974, the military junta ruling Greece at the time carried out a coup against the government of Cyprus that was democratically elected. And using this as a pretext, 5 days later, Turkey conducted a full-scale invasion of Cyprus that was separated into 2 phases, one starting in July and another one in August 1974. And this was despite calls by the United Nations Security Council to stop any military operations on the island. Now, this invasion, as we will see on the map in a bit, resulted in the occupation of 36% of the island, nearly half of the island approximation. And this meant that around 200,000 Greek Cypriots were forcibly displaced and became refugees in their own countries. Now, these Greek Cypriots owned around 82% of the land and properties in the occupied areas now, and have denied access to their properties ever since. And this is according to Cyprus Land Registry in 1964. Now, all of this situation has been referred to by numerous decisions and resolutions given by broad international legal and regulatory bodies, including United Nations, European Union, Council of Europe, and Commonwealth, all of which have condemned this invasion by Turkey and repeatedly called the withdrawal of troops from the island. Now, if we go to 1983, November 15th, Turkish Cypriot administration in the occupied area of Cyprus unilaterally declared the de facto state of Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, or TRNC. This is a self-proclaimed state which was condemned and deemed legally invalid by several bodies, including the United Nations. And as I will mention later on, the only country that officially recognizes this state is Turkey. Now, in May 12, 2014, there has been a milestone court ruling by European Court of Human Rights, which ruled that Turkey was actually responsible for the ongoing human rights violation in the occupied site, and affirmed that the displaced Greek Cypriots remain the legal owners of the property and land in the occupied area. The same situation holds today, where Turkey still maintains military control of the occupied area in the island of Cyprus, and it's the only country, as I mentioned, that is recognizing the TRNC. Now, to visually depict the situation, here we have a map of the island of Cyprus. With a bold red color, we have the occupied area, the 36% that has been occupied since the invasion. And with the blue color, we have what we call a buffer zone. So this was established by the United Nations for peacekeeping purposes. They also refer to it as the green line. Looking at the occupied area, we see several coastal areas with some popular names that used to be very tourist attractions prior to the invasion. One of these areas is Varosha, part of Famagusta, which is actually has been a ghost town ever since the invasion. The Turkish military barred and denied access to everybody that wanted to get into the town. Now, this was until recently, at least. Now, regarding the nature of real estate usurpation that is ongoing, these properties that I mentioned in the occupied area of Cyprus are now being illegally sold and developed under the administration in the area. We see a surge of foreign buyers coming in and investors, which include Russian, British, Israeli, and Iranian citizens who are being targeted with offers. These offers essentially highlight this investment as a lucrative opportunity for them and proceed with the transactions. However, as you can understand, these sales violate property rights of the legal owners and individuals, and this is something that is recognized by European Court of Human Rights and European Court of Justice. Throughout the years, there have been numerous court orders that were ruled in favor of the legal owners, Greek Cypriots. We have three milestone court orders here against Turkey, and the final one against the Orans. Now, this is a particularly interesting case, since the Orans were actually a British family that bought land in the TRNC, and they built their house there. And of course, this was originally owned by Apostolidis. And the court, let's say, ruled that they had to abandon the house and demolish it. Right. Now, on the right-hand side of the slide, we can see several news headlines that are more current, let's say, of the current status of the ongoing situation. There are several international real estate agents that operate in the occupied side of Cyprus that have been arrested and are facing trials regarding the usurpation and exploitation of properties there. And we also have other headlines that highlight the lack of awareness of potential investors. For instance, we have here that Israel was issued a warning to the citizens not to partake in any transactions and buying land and properties in the occupied side of Cyprus. Now, regarding the disinformation that is ongoing, there is a clear campaign to shape the perception and promote disinvestment with by obscuring also the illegality of this transaction. We see a lot of real estate sales that occur by being promoted to foreign buyers within some sort of an aggressive marketing that utilizes also false and misleading narratives, despite these areas being contested and under international law. Now, this campaign overall, we'll see in a bit through our narratives that we have identified, expresses certain objectives. The first one is to normalize the transaction in this unrecognized territory, to obscure any legal complexities and reduce scrutiny surrounding them. Of course, is to drive the economic profit over these contested properties, and to signal partial or future recognition of TRNC from other governments and countries through diplomatic and celebrity rumors. All of these undermine the legal authority of the Republic of Cyprus. Now, regarding this, we identified several narratives in the web, circulating the web, and we will focus on 4 narratives that are specific to the real estate exploitation and development. Our first narrative was a claim that circulated around August 2023, heavily, regarding a Russian consulate to open in the occupied area. This initially began from a TASS news article and was picked up by Turkish Cypriot media and was framed so that it translates to the recognition of TRNC by Russia, which directly meant that it recognized. This was also promoted a lot by specific groups in social networks like X and Facebook. Now, this is not something new. If we go a year back in 2022, the same claim was surfaced and circulated at the time also, which was debunked. Now, the original piece of news was that Russia was about to open mobile consular units in the occupied part of Cyprus to serve Russian expatriates, also because of the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, and resulted to make official clarification both from TASS and Russian ambassadors, which stated that there is no formal recognition from this action and not an actual consulate was opening in the occupied area. Despite this, this discourse kept promoting in online social networks and was framed like in a partial recognition of TRNC. The timing was perfect for this claim to be and this narrative to be promoted, because it aligned perfectly with the at the time sanctions that were applied from European Union to Russia due to the ongoing war, and along with the international investment in real estate marketing that I mentioned earlier. And here we see a specific news piece from Guardian that essentially highlights all of this, as TRNC is being represented to Russian expatriates as a sanction-free haven for those who are trying to start their life over and avoid all the sanctions and the ongoing tensions because of the war. Now we move on to our second narrative regarding a 7-star hotel that resides in the ghost town of Varosha and the mysterious ownership, right? So initially an article released from UK news media called Express and also The Sun claimed that this 7-star hotel actually was owned by King Charles, the UK King Charles. It was somewhere in February 2024. Of course, this was not, it was debunked, this was denied by official royal channels. However, it was still maintained and promoted in the web from both United Kingdom and Turkish Cypriot outlets. And their overall narrative was to promote the real estate investment in the area and the potential of this investment. Interestingly, what we saw is that certain real estate agencies and real estate websites that operate in the occupied occupied area of Cyprus promoted this news article along with the Russian consulate, and they even made political discussions surrounding the Russo-Ukrainian war. Now, our third narrative revolves around Ukrainian President Zelenskyy and the claim that circulated X that President Zelenskyy purchased a 5-star casino resort in the occupied Cyprus. Now, on the right-hand side, we can see a snapshot of this post. The user who posted this was Ossi Kozak. This is a known Australian extremist that posts pro-Russian propaganda and ultranationalist, and at the time holded a follower count of around 120,000 users. The claim suggested that Zelenskyy actually spent $200 million to buy a casino resort through his company Film Heritage Inc. And the post even had attachments of a website of property listings that showed that Vuni Palace, which is the name of the casino resort, was for sale for $200 million, and Zelenskyy had bought it. Afterwards, this property listings site was identified to be a fake one. Although we can see on the snapshot that this tweet at the time of the screenshot reached around 3 million views, which is quite significant. Now, it didn't stay within X. It was picked up also by several other international and local news channels, including Pravda from Russia and other local channels like Sirma Live, which is a Cypriot, Greek Cypriot channel for news. Of course, this was fact-checked and was deemed false information, was debunked, both from international fact-checking organizations like Snopes and other local ones as well. Our fourth and final narrative is the claim, the ongoing rumor that for plans to turn Varosha to what they call Las Vegas of the Mediterranean. This was circulated first by a UK-based news agency, Express, and was picked up also by Turkish Cypriot news media. And they promoted the idea of turning Varosha, the ghost town, into a gambling and luxury tourism hub. The news piece used language like billion-pound project, ghost town revived, and casino paradise, which was very appealing, let's say, and even claimed that they had international investors and royals who were involved in this vision. Also, again, this was something, of course, that was promoted by real estate agencies that operated in the occupied side of Cyprus. And they even contained different images to describe this vision, and side-to-side comparison with the current state of the ghost town, with the abandoned buildings and so on. And on the other side, we see all these high skyscrapers and that resembles, let's say, Las Vegas in the US. Now, completing our narratives, our 4 narratives here, to cover this campaign, we identified several observables. So according to the EU External Action Service, an observable is a concrete element that can help us, let's say, unravel how this campaign unfolded. For each narrative, we identified several of these observables. These include news articles, which we heavily relied on those, social network posts to see how they promoted and propagated these narratives. We had also TikTok and YouTube videos, Reddit posts. I mentioned earlier the real estate website and their blog posts. And we can see that to disseminate this information, they use mostly English language, targeting an international audience of investors. They also use Russian for specific target audiences, Turkish and Greek. Now, by aggregating the follower count, the shares, the likes, and the viewers count in the websites, we estimate a total outreach of this campaign of around 10.5 million people, which is quite significant. Now, given these observables, and under the premises of the Athena project, we wanted to capture the characteristics of the campaign that was conducted. So we needed to identify TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures, something that Ines already mentioned during the introduction. To briefly, let's say, discuss these terms, tactics are high-level objectives that one is trying to achieve through the campaign. For instance, manipulation of public opinion or the undermining of democratic institutions. Then we have techniques, which are more specific methods that are employed to accomplish these tactics. For instance, manipulation of search engine algorithms or the use of bots to disseminate or produce disinformation. And then we have procedures, which is detailed processes that combine tactics and techniques with a more general objective, like to maximize the impact of the campaign or to evade the detection. Now, to put everything down and to annotate the observables we found with these TTPs, we used a framework that's called Disarm. It's a widely used framework for characterizing this information operations. And specifically, we focus on the RED framework, which is to capture the TTPs of the adversary, of the threat actor. Now, these TTPs are categorized in a taxonomy, as we will see, that is distinguished in 4 phases. The planning phase, where the objectives are established by the adversary. The preparation, where all the narratives and the content is being developed. The execution, where the post and the propagation begins, and the assessment. Now, to do this and to conduct this annotation and analysis, we used an existing tool. It's provided freely by the Disarm Foundation. It's called Disarm Navigator. So essentially, it's an interface with all of these TTPs available, and where you can select and annotate if this is applicable to your case study and provide certain justification, like, for instance, the observable links. Now, after doing this analysis for our narratives, we highlighted, let's say, certain frequent and apparent patterns of TTPs used for the different phases in each narrative. Here we focus on the plan, preparation, execution phases because assessment is a bit tricky, let's say, to identify. And we can see some patterns, right? So for instance, in the planning phase, across all of our narratives, we can see that the main, let's say, objective was to make money, as it is said, to make profit from these contested areas and to cultivate support. For instance, in the Russian consulate narrative, essentially we're trying to cultivate support and to frame that, okay, Russia is recognizing us, is supporting us, so they're trying to gain their support. And similar to the other cases where, for instance, the King Charles appealed to the UK audiences, Zelenskyy to the Ukrainian audiences, and etc. Also, there is a leverage of geopolitical advantage of and different geopolitical events that are ongoing, like the Russo-Ukrainian war, etc. In the preparation, we see the leverage of existing narratives, right? So we take the Russo-Ukrainian war and the sanctions, and we utilize that. They utilize that to gain traction and cultivate support, similar to Zelenskyy and the different rumors surrounding its name. And during the execution, we see a lot of attraction of traditional media, of news articles that basically take this rumors, the claims, the information, and promote it and amplify it, either intentionally or by mistake. Of course, there is a lot of content online, and there is cross-posting. This means that the same post, the same text, and the same image is being posted in multiple platforms, let's say Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the same time to amplify the exposure, let's say. Now, covering these techniques, these TTPs, we also see the implementation and application of certain countermeasures. For instance, the official rebutals that were stated from Republic of Cyprus, the President of Republic of Cyprus, Russian ambassador in task regarding the Russian consulate, the royal family who issued a rebuttal and denial of the ownership of the hotel in Varosha. There has also been a series of debunking and fact-checking, like in both the cases of King Charles III and President Zelenskyy owning the casino. And we see also the application of content limitations, where essentially the user who posted the tweet regarding Zelenskyy buying the casino resort was banned. And the website for the fake website with the property listings was shut down. And actually here we note again that the actual casino resort, Vuni Palace, is taking legal action against these fake claims that Zelenskyy bought it, which is another somehow another countermeasure, let's say legal actions. Despite this, we see that this campaign is still persistent, despite all of these advancements and stricter legal actions that have been taken. Most recently, there is a rise in the sales of luxury villas in the occupied side of Cyprus in high prices as well. And we also see a development in terms of people that were legally prosecuted for usurpating, exploiting properties to follow up with legal actions against the Republic of Cyprus and President Christodoulides. Now, somehow here I conclude, let's say, my presentation. I will do so with some recommendations that as are an outcome, let's say, from our findings. The most important one we find is that there is a lack of awareness regarding the illegality of the contested properties. So we note here the need of a general and investor awareness initiatives. For the general public, we suggest, let's say, the awareness campaigns that highlight the historical, legal, and human rights dimensions of the properties in the occupied side of Cyprus. And this can be done using multimedia storytelling and educational outreach, which are modern methods for dissemination and outreach. Regarding the investors, it's very important to have investor awareness campaigns, because after discussions and analysis, majority of investors that come to Cyprus right now for these opportunities are not aware of the situation. So we need to inform potential investors and real estate companies as well for the legal risks and ethical issues that are associated with purchasing the contested properties. And we can emphasize on the compliance with international law, as we saw earlier, the application of international law over these international real estate agents. And of course, the final point is not only applicable in this context, but in general in disinformation and misinformation campaigns, is a continuous monitoring and debunking, where essentially we need to establish a dedicated task force to monitor platforms, in this case for the occupied Cyprus real estate misinformation, and also the advertisements online, and to implement some kind of a real-time reporting mechanism in collaboration with social network platforms as well. And this will help us to track misinformation trends and be able to adapt our responses accordingly. Now, this wraps my presentation. I thank you all for your attention and for the opportunity to participate. And if I'm not mistaken right now, we should move on to the Q&A session.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Demetris, and for this good overview of the situation in Northern Cyprus. So let's now open the floor for questions. We have approximately 20 minutes for questions from the audience. Also a reminder to use Slido and not the, the Zoom Q&A. You can scan the QR code on the screen or go to slido.com and enter the code #disinfo. And as we are waiting for more questions to be posted, I'll take the opportunity to ask the first one. I would be interested to know, how did you trace the cross-platform propagation of the fabricated narratives, for example, from Telegram to Facebook or X, and were specific amplification techniques such as bot activity, content seeding observed across platforms?
Yeah, so for the majority of our analysis was conducted using manual effort, right? So to detect this kind of cross-platform activity, essentially in the early days of the analysis, we used a system provided from Meta. It's called CrowdTangle. Now, unfortunately, it's not provided anymore. That lets us scan activities in Facebook and Instagram. We had our own tools for Twitter, and we used services from Reddit to monitor those as well. Now, we use also several open source intelligent tools, and is reverse image search, because this cross-platform posting was mostly revolved around image sharing. And we were able to match, let's say, the same image propagated in several platforms using the same text as well. Now, in terms of amplification, we did not, let's say, identify specific use of bots, right? Despite the fact that we know that basically you can manage your accounts and using a single software to post in multiple platforms. However, we did not identify any kind of this automated amplification. The amplification was conducted because of the narratives and the trend that surrounded, let's say, the context of each narrative.
Great, thank you very much. Now we have a question by Pavlo. How have geopolitical developments like Brexit and the Ukraine war tangibly influenced foreign investor interest in Varosha, and what trends have you observed?
Right, thank you for the great question. I will answer the best I can. From my perspective of the analysis, we saw that at least for the Russo-Ukrainian war, it heavily, let's say, influenced the rise in terms of investment in the area, especially by Russian expatriates and Ukrainians. So as you saw during the analysis, we have two narratives that are highly related to the Russo-Ukrainian war. The first was the Russian consulate that was open in the area, and the promotion of this investment, let's say, utilized and exploited these geopolitical tensions to say that, okay, look here, we offer a sanctions-free haven for you to reside, and this meant significantly correlated, let's say, in the rise of sales. Now, in terms of Brexit, that we analyzed some discussion, ongoing discussion after the Brexit between Turkish Cypriot administration, let's say, and UK, and several discussions. And one narrative that it didn't present here is the heavy discussions for direct flights from the UK to Northern Cyprus. So this is also something that is appealing to potential investors, and of course has heavily influenced the overall narrative for real estate development.
Okay.
I don't know if that answers the question.
Thank you. I think it's good. We'll go to the next one. How were the AI-generated images in the context of the Las Vegas narrative detected, and what does it suggest about the evolving role of AI in these campaigns, according to you?
Yeah. So basically, we had a couple of articles regarding this Las Vegas of the Met narrative that all utilize different kinds of images on the vision of what Varosha can become. Now, this image all bear this characteristic of AI generation, like we saw earlier. And this, let's say, made us curious. So we used 4 tools that are say to detect if an image is AI generated, and these are different from text because images bear some kind of signatures and footprints in the pixels, let's say. And we averaged the scores, and we found out that these images are around 80% generated with AI. Of course, this is something that one can see for themselves also. However, just to clarify here that these images that were generated and were promoted were like a vision, were not like a deep fakes and other cases of image generation that are used in these campaigns. The issue with this campaign is that basically they promote this appealing vision without any clarification and raising any awareness on the illegality of this development and transaction. However, regarding the role in AI in these campaigns, we foresee that, of course, it will play a significant role, and I think it already is. I mean, several of the content online, you can understand that we don't know their origins, if it's a user or a bot that is generating them. And we also see several occasions like the meddling in US election, the recent US elections. Propagandists are using this kind of generative AI to promote certain political agendas, and several other scandals as well.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to the next question. This one is a bit technical. What data sources did you use to verify the origin and spread of the disinformation? Social media scraping, OSINT tools, platform APIs, and were these claims very validated? I think you partly replied to the question already, but if you want to add something.
Yeah, so for data sources, again, our initial focus was news articles. So we focused on news articles using some in-house scraping tools for analysis. And then we wanted to see how these news articles were promoted in social media, social networks. So we used, as I mentioned earlier, the platform is called CrowdTangle to access Instagram and Facebook, and certain APIs for the rest. We had some issues with Twitter and TikTok, but we combined certain automation tools along with manual analysis. And also for a large portion, let's say, of our analysis was the reverse image search that utilized available OSINT tools as well. Now, for the validation of claims, where I mean, in all of these kinds of methodology, we used transparent methodologies, and we relied on cross-referencing this kind of claims and sources. And of course, at the end, we relied on the debunking of these claims by fact checkers, on the refutal letters by governments, and in the case of King Charles, the royal channel, let's say. So this kind of cross-references was used to validate the claims.
Okay, super. There is a question about the governments of Cyprus and Greece, if they do anything about this. I highlighted here. It's clear that Russia is involved, and simply debunking lies is no longer enough these days. What do you have to answer?
So I mentioned at the beginning that at least recently, I mean, from the beginning of this usurpation exploitation, there has been ongoing court orders and legal actions taken from both the government and individuals for the issue of exploitation. But recently, we've seen a rise in legal actions taken against international and local real estate agents, right? We saw the arrest of a German real estate agent, and recently a Ukrainian real estate agent that was usurpating properties in the occupied Cyprus. Also, we recently learned that Dubai barred the entrance from a Turkish Cypriot real estate agent that was related with exploitation of properties. So there is legal action taken both from the government and the EU, because some of these arrests was conducted in London, in Italy. So we see some legal action taking place. Now, regarding Russia is involved, yes, we see this clear image, let's say, and we even conducted some analysis on the real estate website I mentioned during the presentation, because we find it very interesting that these sites basically discussed the implications of sanctions and how Cyprus is supporting Ukraine as a EU member state. So what we did is we analyzed certain domains of these websites and found that basically they are registered in the Russian domain registrars. So, of course, debunking is also part of this, but we see that the government is and the EU is trying to address this issue. Of course, the volume of these cases is significant in order to be able to cover all of this. This is why we suggest the specific, tailored task force for this monitoring to be, let's say, defined, established.
Thank you very much. Another question that I find interesting. Can you explain how these fabricated stories were received by foreign investors or the general public, and were they effective in driving actual investment interests? Were they successful, basically?
Yeah, so this is very interesting, because the use of these celebrities and politicians in these rumors and these claims spiked the interest in people. I have two stances in terms of this. The first one is that people hearing, let's say, King Charles, for instance, the UK people that are fascinated with royalty, they hear King Charles and they want to, let's say, take a piece of the pie. The same goes for Russian expatriates that hear the situation, they hear that this is a sanction-free haven, they want to partake, and the same goes for Zelenskyy as well. And the other is the Las Vegas of the Met, is something that, let's say, if you are a real estate agent, we hear that this project is an ongoing vision, and we hear that all of these royalty and billionaires are involved. We want to partake. It's very appealing, and we would like to start to highlight the feeling of urgency, right, in order to invest. So there is a significant persuasive in terms of target audiences. The other part is that they follow the current trend of the narratives in the world, right? So there is the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine, the sanctions. So if you create a narrative that follows this kind of flow, it will also be picked up by algorithms, by recommendation algorithms in use and in other systems as well. And it will start to be picked up by people's, let's say, front pages. So there's bidirectional, let's say, amplification that's going on. And in terms of effectiveness, I believe that they were actually effective, because we've seen a rise in the sales, especially in the target audiences.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite worrying indeed. Another question from Pavlo. Can you share examples of successful awareness campaigns or diplomatic interventions that managed to deter foreign investment in disputed territories?
We don't have any specific examples of awareness campaigns. What I can tell you is that there are, at least within the EU, there are certain initiatives, especially by our governments and the ministry, to promote this kind of situation. So in the EU, there is actually a bit of awareness. I'm more of a technical, let's say, in terms of this this situation, this context. However, I would like to, let's say, highlight the need of to raise and to make a more structured and organized awareness campaigns regarding these matters.
Thank you. And maybe a final question before wrapping up. Are there any grassroots or civil society efforts on the island working to counter these narratives or to bring both communities into dialogues?
Yeah. Again, I'm not familiar with any specific grassroots or civil society efforts. I know, though, that there has been a long history of discussions and dialogues between the two sides, with several instances of potential solutions to be found, but one or the other had different kinds of opinions. This is evidently also from our analysis in terms of the discussion that we try to also say how the audience perceived this kind of information, and we saw that it was not like potential investors replied to the piece of news or the stories. It was like we've seen evidently the polarization between the two communities. But for specific efforts, I have to check and get back to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, people can reach out to us after the webinar as well if they want more, if they have more questions. But it's time to wrap up our discussion today. But I would like to thank you again, Demetris, for your presentation and your expertise, sharing your expertise. And a big thank you to my colleague Heini behind the scene as well, and to our attentive audience for staying until the end. Let me now announce our upcoming webinars. Yeah, the registration, for the conference still, and the upcoming webinars here. The next one is on the 30th of April, exploring political advertising data, who targets me. On the 8th of May, it's in French, influence des récits étrangers sur les conflits contemporains en France. On the 15th of May, on climate disinformation reloaded. And finally, on the 28th of May, on the UK riots, how coordinated messaging mobilized rioters, lessons in detecting inauthentic behavior with the University of Amsterdam. So don't forget to register if you're interested in the topics. And a reminder as well that the recording of this webinar will be available on our YouTube channel as well as on the website, and you can also watch all the previous webinars. Thanks again to everyone, and we hope to see you soon in the next webinars and potentially in person as well to our annual conference in Ljubljana in October. Thank you and have a good day, everyone. Bye-bye.